Hello, David here, and the project for today is repairing this Bissell model 16N5K vacuum cleaner. If you remember, I already did a video on maintenance of this vacuum cleaner, and I'll put that link up at the top. What happened here was I cracked the housing. See that big crack there? And having these size 13 feet are no pleasure walking around. It's kind of like walking around with snowshoes. Anyway, I was using the hose attachment to vacuum out my car, and I went to push the vacuum away, carting it away on the wheels, and I was standing on the cord. And that action of pushing the vacuum by the top handle and the cord holding the bottom part stationary caused this crack. So I'm going to remove this top piece. There's some screws in here holding that in. There's quite a bit of carnage here. There's switches in here, and those wires come down through here to this jack. And that jack plugs into a female. That's right there. Also, this shelf provides strength. It completely broke out. And that clips into this lip. Can't see that. It clips into this lip right there. This is still intact. Yet the screw, this part that's still attached to the screw, that completely broke off. That's attached to here. That screw end attaches here. This screw end is attached to the top piece, but this whole top piece was attached to here. So this is a mess. Is it a weak design? I don't know. But there are two more screws right here that should come out. Okay, this is the part with the wiring. It's the part with the buttons. These buttons will fall right out. I found another broken piece. This piece goes right in there. I've been calling all over town to see if I could buy this part, and they're not available. It's an older vacuum. I'm not surprised. You can't get parts for it anymore, but I was hoping if I called all the shops in town, I might be able to find a Bissell model 16N5K that was sitting in a junk pile and I could cannibalize it. That would be ideal. I did talk to one person at Viking Sewing Machines, and they gave me a part number that's different than the number on here. The number on here is 11-0061-040. I don't know if you could see that. But she told me the part number is 203-1587. and I checked on that. I couldn't find it until I got to a website called partswarehouse.com. Not a sponsor, and they have one for $21.61 plus $8 shipping. So I was thinking I was going to order it, but I thought, what good would my channel be if I didn't try to repair something? So I thought, I'm going to try to repair this. And my options are epoxy it. This thing takes a lot of pressure because this piece of plastic takes all the way to the vacuum, and it's a heavy vacuum. Of course, you're not supposed to lift it by this handle. You're supposed to lift it by the handle that's on the filter housing, which is in front of the vacuum, about midway down. But I was also thinking, someone told me that you can weld plastic and get it to melt together. And I thought I might try that because I never tried it before. And of course you cannot use an open flame welding because the plastic will catch on fire. You have to use a soldering iron. Kind of go inside and get the plastic to flow. Just kind of go along the seam. So I'd like to try that. I think it'd be fun. And if that doesn't work or if it breaks, I could certainly go with the epoxy routine and go with JB Weld, and if that breaks, I'll order that replacement handle. Try this easy part first. Do this little female threaded section. Okay, got it in position. The soldering gun to warm up. This plastic's pretty thick around the threaded area. It's this webbing and the thin plastic housing you don't want to go through. It would look funny with a hole poking through the outside plastic. The problem is the parts fit together so tightly at the crack you can't see the crack anymore, so you kind of lose sight of the area that you need to weld. So this is a dual heat soldering gun, 100 watts and 140 watts. It's a Weller. I've got it on the first heat, 100 watts. Whoops, I went through there. That webbing was very thin over there, and that's where I went through at the webbing. It's not moving. There's one other thing I want to try. What I want to know is, can you weld it with filler rod of plastic? So according to the engraving in the mold, this is ABS. I don't know if it's possible. I have a minor in plastics, but I don't remember any of that stuff. This is a top to a 5-gallon bucket. It's HDPE, high density polyethylene. I'm going to cut a strip off of this. Got this piece of plastic from the pail lid, and I think the way the filler piece would melt is dependent upon the thickness that you cut. If it's too thick, it's going to take longer to weld. See if I could do something. A third hand would be handy right now. See if I can fill that little hole I made over there. I'm on the second heat now, higher wattage. If you just heat the filler and lay it on top of a cold joint, it's not going to be a strong weld, so you have to get everything hot. Because it's just like welding metal. Okay, that's what I've got. It's not pretty, but I think it's beefier than the original. Get these two pieces together. I did clean both pieces with some alcohol to get any dirt and oils off of it. Put some tape on it, make sure it doesn't slide apart on me. Need to be really careful that I don't burn through to the other side. Crack is so sharp, it's hard to see where it is. It's running along here. As far as this area goes, I don't even think I could get down there with the tip. Okay, here's the crack. Crack runs along here. Another crack right here. Oh, got a little melt showing on this side. See that dimple right there. But it is holding fast. Slipped again. You know, I think the only way to line this up is if I epoxy it in place. I've got some JB Weld mixed up. They're not a sponsor, but they make great stuff. I'm going to put it where that stud goes. Scoop it in there really good. As far as the mating side, right here, I've got the stud loosely held in with the screw. It's going to position itself, but I'm going to have to line it up a little bit. It's going to be facing about like that. Get this thing to click into place. Test its movement here with the screwdriver. Yep, feels like it's in place. Okay, I'm just going to let this sit overnight. Alright, it's the next day. The epoxy is set up. I put this one screw in here on the right side just to line everything up and hold it in place. Okay, let's hope this one doesn't break. Just hoping there's enough epoxy in there to hold that stud in place. Okay, there we have it. It is tilting over to the left a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up some more epoxy, fill that in there to strengthen this piece, and I'm probably going to drop some in along the cracked seams as well to give that some more strength. I'm going to do that off camera. The epoxy is set. I put some epoxy deep down where the soldering iron tip wouldn't fit, and I also did reinforce some of the welded areas because this thing does take a lot of stress. Put this thing back together. Stick here, and this is an integral portion of the strength required to hold the top handle to the vacuum cleaner, because that part clips over this shelf right here. That shelf right there. So I'm going to have to build this up, give it some strength. Also, this plastic connector, that broke out and there's no plastic holding that up. For it to make a connection, it can't slip down. I think I'm going to have to, I'll probably have to epoxy this thing in place. I'm going to have to guess on the elevation. These tabs probably slip underneath this plastic base. So I'm guessing it's probably going to be about right there. Okay, I shimmed up the underside of this with some cardboard. Got a piece of scrap plastic. Try to weld that into place. Adding some filler. This shelf is not holding. Just not going to use it at all. I'm just going to have to depend upon these two screws to hold everything together. This thing just isn't going to be strong enough. I had to cut a notch in here because there's a divider in between that shelf. So I don't see any way how this is going to provide much strength for holding the handle together. So I had this jack epoxied in, and it was only held down by this one side over here. And when I tried to do a test fit, putting this assembly on, it broke. So either it was out of position, or I didn't have enough epoxy holding it in where it should have been held in on four sides. But what I decided to do was to extend the cord. So I spliced in wires, soldered them, and then put some heat shrink tubing on it so that I could do a manual fit. Should be able to just plug it in like this. Get that plugged in, and I should be able to do the assembly. Tuck those wires in. Get it in like that. Let's turn it over. Got it plugged in, let's give it a try. Working good. My only concern is this handle. It's weaker than it was, and I don't know how much longer it's going to last, but I'll keep using it, see how it holds up. I've got these two long screws. That's the only thing that's really holding it in there. I want to thank you guys and gals for watching. I answered the question, can you weld plastic? And I think you can, but is it strong? No, I don't think it's strong. I think epoxy, maybe a combination of welding and epoxy will work, but I think epoxy is stronger. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more great videos from David GPO.